Hello. Do you have trouble falling asleep? Does insomnia keep you up? Do you squirm and wiggle around in your bed, putting yourself in all kinds of contorted positions to try and find the perfect position that's going to cause you to fall asleep? Um, I used to be like that. You would have laughed if you had seen a video of me, which there are none, fortunately. But I remember I would wiggle and I would put myself in all kinds of positions. I would put my butt against the wall and put my legs straight up against the wall. I would do all kinds of stuff just to try and figure out what I needed to do to fall asleep. Now, there are actually lots of solutions for falling asleep that don't require any medication. So I wanted to share with you some of the techniques that you can use to help you go to sleep at night. Now, this is not going to necessarily help you stay asleep all night long. Okay, that is a completely different puzzle. But as far as falling asleep is concerned, I used to, it would take me half an hour, an hour and a half, 2 hours before I would fall asleep. But there are no longer problems for me on the vast majority of nights. Most nights, I fall asleep in probably 2 minutes. There are nights where I fall asleep as soon as I close my eyes. There are nights where it takes me 5 minutes, but it's usually a very fast descent into sleep for me. And it didn't, like I said, it didn't used to be that way. Before I get to my specific method that I came up with to help me to fall asleep, I want to share with you other methods because there are actually lots of different methods that you can find out there that will help you. Now, we're going to start with diet. Okay? Diet is a serious reason you can't sleep. Okay, if you are loading up on carbohydrates, sugars, before bed, you are definitely going to make it more difficult to fall asleep. If you are drinking alcohol before you go to bed, now I know you feel like, oh, I get sleepy when I drink alcohol, but alcohol has actually been proven to disrupt your sleep. Stop. Also, if you are drinking caffeine before bed, now, there are exceptions. My wife was, she was one of those people that caffeine would make her go to sleep. And my children have the same thing. But, or at least my daughter does. I'm not sure if my son does yet. It seems to be triggered by puberty. But if you are not yet through starting puberty and you have no indications that caffeine makes you sleepy, don't take caffeine within, well, I guess it depends on when you go to bed. My rule of thumb was that I would have tried to avoid caffeine. It used to be I wouldn't drink caffeine any closer than 10 hours before bedtime. Now I have done it where I've had it about 7.5, 8 hours before bedtime, and I'm still good, as long as I don't drink a lot of caffeine. But the job that I do, I work in a sortation center for Amazon, and I find that sometimes I just need that little bit of extra caffeine, so I have a cup of coffee at lunchtime at noon, but avoiding caffeine is a great idea. Now, please keep in mind, a lot of teas have caffeine in them. It's not just coffee. It's not just colas. Also, there are other beverages, and of course, don't forget, chocolate has caffeine. So if you're like me, a chocolate lover, you want to avoid caffeine. And finally, don't eat anything and try to avoid drinking for 2 hours before bedtime. Now, I know that there are some people, because of medications or whatever, you may not be able to accomplish that. But, you can try talking to your doctor and say, hey, I'm having problems sleeping. Can we adjust my schedule so that I can eat and drink more than 2 hours prior to sleep? So that's a big one that affects people, is all these different things that are going to interfere with your sleep, especially eating right before bed. Now, I know some people are like, well, I just want to have some cookies before I sleep with a glass of milk. Okay, guys, do you want to sleep or not? Do you want to sleep quickly or not? That's why you're watching this video, right? Okay, move on. I know you may be a food addict. There are foodaholic meetings and groups. And there are things that you can do but I'm not an expert on that, so I'm not going to talk about it. Anyways, now I don't know if you are a morning shower person or a night shower person. I am a night shower person, and I have been for a very, very long time. I do it I do it primarily for two reasons. The first reason is I've got lots of allergies, and I find that going to bed and keeping my bed clean, and the easiest way to do that is to have a shower before I go to bed, is the best solution. So, but there is a side benefit, I guess you could say, or a primary benefit in the case of this video, in that going from a state of being hot to a state of not being hot after a shower actually will help you to fall asleep faster. Now, you do have to moderate the temperature based on what season it is. If you are getting out of the shower and you're sweating because it was so hot in the shower, that's actually probably going to be a bad thing, because you're going to be sweaty and uncomfortable and stuff. But after that, you should try to cool off rapidly. There's something, and I don't remember, unfortunately, why it is, but there's something about going from a state of being hot to a state of being cool that actually encourages you to fall asleep. Okay, so take a warm shower or a hot shower depending on the season, and then go to bed. And if you have a fan, set up the fan next to your bed, or at least blowing cold air in from outside, or pushing the hot air out of the room so that the room can cool off. What I do is my bedroom is the master bedroom, so I actually have, on really hot days, I'll turn on the bathroom fan hours before I go to bed, so and then just close. Well, there are two doors to the bathroom, right? So I make sure that the door going to the main part of the house is closed, and I just open the door to my bedroom and allow the fan to suck out some of the hot air from the bedroom. And then I turn on the fan when I go to bed. And if necessary, I've got a fan next to my bed, as well as the fan in the window and the fan in the bathroom, and that helps to cool things off faster so that it's more comfortable when I go to bed. Having your bedroom be optimized for comfort is important, and thus the next thing that you should do is take your TV out of the bedroom. Stop watching TV at bedtime. I realize that you feel like, oh, it's the boob tube helps me fall asleep. The idiot box is my pacifier. But guess what? The idiot box may not be what you think it is. All right? So first of all, you have to remember that advertisers use television, whether it's shows or advertisements. Marketers use it as a tool to condition you to buy what they want you to buy. If you are leaving the TV on while you are asleep, you are vulnerable to those messages more so than when you're awake, because your filters drop. Okay? Second of all, what you see before you go to bed, or even what you read before you go to bed for that matter, can actually stimulate your brain enough that it makes it more difficult for you to fall asleep. What I'm saying here is, if you're reading a horror novel and it's actually kind of making you scared, you're going to be jittery. Or if you're reading a thriller and you're gotten to a really exciting spot where there's a chaser or something that has got your blood pumping and you're like, go, 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 that's going to make it harder for you to go to sleep. Anything that is stimulating your brain at bedtime is a bad deal. Now, for some people, you have got your computer or your tablet or your phone in the bedroom and you're playing video games. Same thing. Now, I can speak from personal experience. After I came back from the U.S., my friend gave me an old iPad anyways, he gave me an old device, and I was using it to play video games every night before I went to bed. And I was just kind of really consumed with it for months and months and months. I wouldn't get to bed on time. I was also kind of, all messed up from, losing my wife and having to flee Indonesia and all the crap that had happened and stuff, blah, blah, blah. But I noticed that I was going to bed later and later. I also noticed that I wasn't sleeping well. And then I remembered the advice that you should not be playing video games before bedtime. And I decided, okay. And literally, this was what I was doing before I fell asleep. It wasn't like play the video games, shower, and then go to sleep. It was shower, play video games, and go to sleep. And I thought, okay, let's just see what happens. Let's just try this. Because at this point in my life, I had not, it had been decades since I had taught myself how to fall asleep quickly. But I was having trouble. Not just with falling asleep, but with staying asleep. And I thought, well, maybe it's the video games. So I gave myself a curfew as to when I had to stop playing video games, which I did. And I immediately noticed an improvement in how quickly it took me to fall asleep and how well I slept at night. So the proof is in the pudding, as they say. I don't know where that comes from. It's a weird saying, don't you think? But the proof is self-evident. Once you pay attention to what you're doing wrong and change it to what you're doing right, you'll see a difference. Now, the reason I'm telling you all these different ways is because everybody works differently, and what works for some people will not work for other people. I have always, as long as I've known about mindfulness, I have advocated it, I have taught it, but I met a young lady. She's got strong anxiety, and she has tried all kinds of different mindfulness, meditation and stuff, and it doesn't work for her at all. So and I'm well aware that what works for one person isn't going to work for everybody. We all like to say, like, we're the same but we're different but the same. The truth is superficially we look different, but that is a superficial consideration. But ultimately, the way our brains work, the way our biochemistry and our bodies work, is different. So we may fit into broad categories. It doesn't have to do with blood type. It doesn't have to do with any kind of simple solution that we are aware of at this time. So, yeah. Please keep in mind, if one of the things I tell you doesn't work, try something else. Or try them all, okay? One of the big benefits for me is, even though I still have other sleep issues, like I've got sleep apnea, for which I have a machine, an auto CPAP, if I'm ever at work in a place where I can, just take quiet time and put my head down, I can fall asleep like that, sitting at a table, hunched over on the table with my head down, and I can, have a timer set for 15 minutes, and I can get a 15-minute nap in just like that. It's wonderful. Now, okay. If you are on medications, ask your doctor if any of the medications that you're on, number one, cause drowsiness, and number two, if they do cause drowsiness, is it okay if you switch up your schedule so you take them at night instead of during the day? Because then they'll help you to sleep. I'm not saying buy sleeping pills or anything like that. Not a good idea. I'm just saying take advantage of pills you already have to take to aid you in falling asleep. Another thing that you can do is prior to bedtime, prior to lying down in bed, meditate. I don't care what kind of meditation it is. I don't care if it's Tai Chi or Xing Yi or Bakwa, or it's transcendental meditation, or it's chanting, or it's no focus meditation, or some other kind of meditation. find a form of meditation that helps you to calm down, helps you to relax. Now, if that means that you need to, listen to a recording of somebody helping that, and it helps you to focus, it helps you to relax and stuff like that, hey, more power to you. But try that. Another thing that you can do is have something at night that plays a kind of neutral white noise. Now, I don't know why they call it a white noise. It probably has something to do with old racist beliefs, but I don't know what else to call it. Basically, like the sound. Oh my gosh, younger people won't understand this. Like the sound of running water. If you like the sound of running water, I mean like a stream or a brook or even a river or a waterfall for that matter. I like all of them. Or if you like the sound of wind, or if you like the kind of sound, anything that kind of blots out background noises. Like I've been having some problems because what was it? A couple months ago, I found a dead mouse in my hiking backpack, and I was like, oh, man, I was really not happy about that. And then it's the cold season right now, and that's obviously it's the cold season, and I woke up a few times hearing this kind of ticking noise at night, and not like a clock ticking, not not something that frequent. And I thought, and I've had mice in the past in my home, that in my bedroom actually, and they were chewing on stuff, and it's very distracting because I'm like, I don't want them in my room, and anyways, it turned out that it was the downstairs neighbor's HVAC going on and heating up, and that caused this regular tick as the metal was expanding. But it's annoying if you let it be annoying, okay? And well, maybe I want to add this. If you're having trouble with sounds at night, white noise, or a noise-making device of some kind that produces a constant kind of blanket of noise. It's not intrusive in your ability to sleep, but that blots out all those little noises that bother you, like a dripping faucet, or if you're in an old house. I don't know if you've ever been in an old house. I grew up in an old house. Old houses make weird noises, creaking and popping and stuff like that. So if those things disrupt your sleep, or if you've got a neighbor who is noisy, but not super noisy, but like you can hear them kind of talking, or you can hear their TV going a little bit. White noise device of some sort can be a miracle. And guess what? Fans are white noise devices. They can actually help too. If you're having a problem with noises distracting you, in conjunction with that, you need to teach yourself to accept those noises, because the vast majority of the noises that you're going to hear while you're trying to sleep are not. Oh gosh, I almost forgot to say, don't use a white noise don't use a volume that's so loud that you couldn't hear, like, say, a fire alarm or something like that. That would be bad, right? You don't want to sleep and die because of a fire. Just something, a low volume noise. So anyways, accepting the noises you're hearing is key to allowing you to sleep. I used to get so upset when somebody would make noise at night, or or even something, and if it was something inanimate or some animal, it would bother me. Not in the same way as people being rude and being noisy at 2 a.m. Like, I had a neighbor, and he and his girlfriend, and you could hear bang, 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 as they were going at it, and they were, ho, 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 and I was like, oh my God, can you move your bed away from the wall? I've had that kind of stuff, but what I had to learn to do was to accept the noises. I had to learn that I didn't have to get upset because of the noises. I just had to say, okay, let it be. I can't change it. I'll try talking to my neighbor, which, I find that talking personally to neighbors is a little bit scary sometimes, but mostly because I'm anticipating something bad happening. But like my downstairs neighbor, he was kind of noisy when he first moved in, and I went and I talked to him, and since then it's been great. I mean, absolutely wonderful. I'm very, very happy, and I even saw him the other day. I said, "Hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate how quiet you've been since I talked to you, and I just want to say thank you." So, but if you can't change it, there's no point in you being upset about it. If you can change it, make it a positive, constructive, polite, friendly effort to get it changed. And if it's a matter of like something that you can you can't change and it's loud, that it's even more important. Like if you're living next to the subway, or you're living next to a light rail, or something else that's noisy, if you don't accept it, your stress levels will go up and stay up, and this causes long-term damage to your body, because your cortisol, which is a stress-induced hormone, will constantly be at a high level, and that will cause health problems like heart disease. So, just accept. Just say to yourself every night, it's a noise, it's okay, it doesn't matter, it's not important. I can sleep with or without noises. Become accepting of the noises you hear, and just let yourself sleep. Now, there are going to be times where it's going to be challenging. There's going to be something that in particular is a pet peeve for you, and it's even more important in that case for you to say that you accept it, for you to just let it go, not worry about it. Because when you get yourself riled up about it, when you get angry about it, when you get frustrated about it, when you get worried about it, that just makes it harder for you to sleep. So learn to accept. I cannot emphasize how much this has helped me in staying asleep at night. Now, once I realized that that tick-tick noise that I heard was the HVAC and it wasn't a mouse in my bedroom, I was able to relax. But the point of me waking up and listening to it was to determine, do I need mouse traps in my bedroom or not? And that was a useful reason not to fall back asleep. But if you're talking about normal reasons to, where you're staying awake, generally speaking, people are staying awake because of noises that they just need to accept. And trust me, it'll make a big difference. I can go to sleep when my kids are being kind of noisy. I can go to sleep under a lot of different situations that I used to never be able to do. And I don't get angry. And if somebody's being just loud beyond the point where I'm able to just fall asleep, I'll just, I'll go in and I'll say, hey, I'm trying to sleep. Can you please cool off and just kind of be quiet for me, please? And it usually is fine that way. So the next thing that you can try to do is prior to bedtime. Now, again, this would be something that you don't want to do right before bedtime, but maybe half an hour to an hour before bedtime. Exercise. Just do something to get yourself to kind of take out extra energy from your body. So if you're feeling like really energetic or something like that. And as a side benefit, it's good for your body. It's good for your muscles and your bones. It's good for a lot of stuff. Probably better to do it prior to taking a shower or taking a bath. But make sure to do that. If you need to, if you find that it helps you. You don't want to do it too close to bedtime because you don't want your heart to be pumping. You don't want to be very energized by the activities, because that produces some positive hormones in your brain that can actually make you feel good but not make you want to sleep. So you want to get rid of excess energy, so do it ahead of time. Just as a thought, the reason I don't recommend using meditation to go to sleep is because meditation has a lot of value when you are awake, and if you're only using it to go to sleep, you may have difficulty using it at other times of day because your brain may associate meditation with, oh, it's time to sleep. And so you're sitting on the subway trying to calm yourself down before an interview, or you're meditating, and the next thing you know, you've fallen asleep, you've missed your stop, you've missed your interview, you've blown it. So I don't recommend meditation right at bedtime. I do, however, suggest that you have a routine of meditating at different times of day, multiple times a day. The more often you do it, the better the effects are going to be, and the sooner that it'll become kind of an automatic thing that calms you down very rapidly. Like, I can normally, if I need to meditate, I can just and I already feel relaxed. The stress went out of my shoulders, and my body just relaxed. So do that prior to getting into bed. You can sit in a chair in the bedroom even. And the next thing is try to avoid doing activities in the bedroom. The bedroom should not be the focus of activities. The bedroom should be a place that you avoid using for things other than sleep. If you are sensitive to light, there are two things that you can do. And depending on what your living situation is, one may be more effective than the other, or you may need to do both. Okay, so one of them is to block light sources. So, if that means that you have to get special drapes or curtains or blinds for your bedroom windows to block out excess light that's coming in. There are some people who will go to very extreme measures to get their bedroom to be absolutely completely dark. And I'm sure that there are people who legitimately need that, but I think probably the majority of people don't need to go to those extremes. Maybe just something thicker over the windows to help blot out some of the extra light. Because I've got white plastic blinds in my bedroom, and they do not do anything for keeping sunlight out. Well, I'm exaggerating, but they don't do a lot to help me. Still, the other thing that I find is the same thing I recommended when it comes to sleep and noise. Learn to accept the light. Now, there is a certain amount of light, and this is a two-part, a double whammy here. Okay, number one, you don't want to have a bunch of lights on in your room. Some scientists studies and scientists have suggested that blue lights are bad for you. Don't look at blue lights before bed, and certainly don't have a blue light on when you want to go to sleep, because supposedly blue light, the blue light range of the visible spectrum will stimulate parts of your brain and makes it harder for you to sleep. And I know, for my daughter, she has to wear blue light blocking glasses when she uses her computer, because if she doesn't, she gets headaches and stuff. So keep that in mind. You may need to have glasses that block blue light, but more importantly, accept that there is some light. Don't fight it. It's light. I mean, if you've got a blinking neon sign outside of your window, what are you going to do about that? I mean, are you the owner of the business? Are you going to be able to turn that thing off? No, probably not, right? So you can't do anything about that. And the majority of light sources that are out there, like street lights and the sun and the moon and somebody's car passing by or something like that, you have no control over that, okay? So unless you're planning to go to great lengths to block out all light sources, it's much easier and much cheaper for most of us to simply learn to accept. Now, if you find you still need to block the windows, that's fine. But learning to have control over your brain is so much more powerful than just altering your environment, because you're not actually solving the problem. You are preventing the problem, but it's like putting a Band-Aid on a gusher, right? It'll eventually stop unless you're a hemophiliac, but it's not an ideal solution, right? Okay, now let's assume that you are lying in bed and you are ready to go to sleep. What I want you to do is, starting either with your toes or your head, doesn't matter, one direction or the other, it doesn't really matter, but start clenching the muscles in each part of your body one by one. So you can say we'll just start with the toes, right? So you're going to clench your toes up, and then you're going to clench tighten up your feet and your ankles, and then your calves, and then you're going to do your knees and your thighs. I'm doing this while I'm telling you this. And get your buttocks, and get your stomach, and your back, and your fingers, and your hands, and your forearms, and your upper arms, and your shoulders, and your neck, and your head. And then let go. Hold it for a bit, as long as you can. Try to keep breathing, but then just let it go. And that explosive release, I should say, for some people is very therapeutic and helps them to let go of all the energy. It helps them to release muscles that they didn't realize were all tensed up. And for some people, it works wonders. And if you do need to do it more than once, you can certainly do it more than once, right? It's not like there's a limit or something like that. Okay, do you remember earlier when I was talking about not eating right before bedtime, and in fact give yourself at least 2 hours? So there's a twofold reason, and I'm going to give you solutions as well. I'm going to go with this. So if you eat within the last 2 hours before you sleep, this tends to have consequences for both your sleep as well as your gut health, and as your overall health. If you eat right before bedtime or within those 2 hours, that means you're going to bed with food in your stomach most likely. Okay, unless you eat a small amount of food, it's going to still be in your stomach, and even then it might still be in your stomach even if it is a small amount of food. If it's got a lot of sugar or a lot of carbs of other kinds in it, that means that your blood sugar is going to be flooded with, your blood is going to be flooded with sugar. And that, if it doesn't get used, well, what happens? Well, it turns into fat. So you're actually increasing your weight. Increasing your weight, the more weight you gain, the more likely you are to have problems sleeping. So it's good to avoid that. Also, another problem that's related specifically to your gut is that if you eat before bedtime, the food in your stomach, if it can't get out of your stomach, you may cause acid reflux or gastroesophageal reflux disease, or Barrett's disease, or heartburn and indigestion. So all these things can result. Now, what is Barrett's disease? Barrett's disease is a precancerous condition of the base of the esophagus where acids from your stomach are getting past the sphincter muscle there. Yes, you have a sphincter muscle there. And getting up into your esophagus and damaging it to the point that it's at risk of becoming cancerous. This is reversible without surgery, but part of the solution to that is don't eat at or near bedtime. Also, that acid can travel up your esophagus all the way into your mouth. Can you imagine waking up with that? It doesn't feel good. It doesn't taste good. You're probably going to be coughing. You may be gasping for breath. You may be having problems breathing. So if you mistakenly eat within 2 hours of bedtime, or deliberately, do not, I repeat, do not sleep on your right side. Your right side is where the esophagus enters your stomach. And that means that if you are sleeping on your right side, your stomach is going to have a very, very, very difficult time emptying out because the exit of your stomach is on the left side. Does that not make sense? I mean, if you've got it coming in and you've got it going out of the same place, it's not going to get very well digested. So it has to be, opposite, so to speak. So ideally, sleep on your left side. Okay. I don't recommend sleeping on your back for multiple reasons, including problems with breathing. Also, the fact that you still might have leaky, gut acid leaking up into your esophagus again when you're lying on your back or even on your stomach. So it's best to sleep on your left side. Another benefit that I realized when I learned about this, or that I experienced, I should say, is that if you sleep on your right side with a full stomach, you will wake up with food in your stomach. And that food may make you feel nauseous. It may just make you feel full so you don't want to eat. It may also cause other problems for you in terms of your health. I used to wake up in the morning and I would be nauseous, and I didn't know why. And it was because I was eating too close to bedtime. And I was not sleeping, and it didn't help that I was not always sleeping on my left side. Now, as much as is possible, I try to go to bed on an empty stomach, and that includes beverages. I try to stop drinking or minimize my drinking, and I mostly just drink water, but I try to stop the consumption of liquids, and please don't be drinking sugary liquids before bedtime. I try to stop that at least 2 hours before, at least. And that is another factor that can make it difficult for you to stay asleep, is if you go to bed and you fill up your bladder, you're going to either have to suffer all the way through till you get up in the morning, which means the quality of your sleep is going to be poor. Or you're going to have to get up, go to the bathroom, go to bed, and try to fall asleep again. And yeah, that for some people that's really hard. They get back into bed and they're like, I can't sleep, because it's the same thing as when you first went to bed. You're having the same problems and you haven't learned to resolve them like I have. So it's like you just went to bed again and you can't sleep for half hour, 2 hours, whatever. But hopefully these tips that I'm giving you are you're going to find the ones that work for you to help you to fall asleep. So yeah, if there's anything in your stomach when you go to bed, sleep on your left side. Stay on your left side as much as you can. I know we toss and turn at night. I toss and turn way more than I want to because I feel pain. I get pain in my joints. I get my arm falls asleep or whatever, so I have to turn and stuff. And if you notice that you've turned to your right side, turn back to your left side as soon as you realize it. But so that's another thing. Now, just wanted to segue for a second into nightmares. I used to have a lot of nightmares. Every once in a while, I still have a nightmare, but very rarely will they wake me up anymore. I mean, I used to have nightmares that, and I would be freaked out by my nightmare. And so I learned two things. Okay, a lot of what's going on in our heads is our own fault. It's because of thinking patterns that we have. It's or things that we worry about or whatever. And so I learned, first of all, that when it comes to nightmares, what I should do when I wake up because of a nightmare is I should stay awake just long enough that the memory of the nightmare fades from my head. Because if I don't do this, when I go back to sleep, I'm right back in the nightmare again. But if I wait long enough that the memory of it, so I try not to think about it. I'll think about something else that's calming, something that's neutral, or beneficial, or something that makes me just like, I'm counting sheep. Whatever works for you, you figure out something that works for you that doesn't induce stress, doesn't induce excitement, doesn't do anything other than help you to forget your nightmare. I keep on looking at my face over here instead of looking at the camera lens because that's what we do as humans, right? It's very frustrating. Sorry for not looking you in the eyes, guys and gals, and everybody in between. So, when you wake up from a nightmare, calm down, and before all the feeling of sleepiness evaporates from your body and brain, once that nightmare has faded from your memory, go back to sleep. And that has worked for me as a stopgap solution so many times. And I can't even remember how many years it's been since I've actually had to use that one, because the ultimate solution to sleeping better, to falling asleep faster, to not having nightmares, or at least not being woken up by nightmares, is better control up here. I was playing a video game yesterday with my son. It's a fairly popular one on Roblox, a platform that irritates the piss out of me sometimes. But we were playing a fairly popular game called The Mimic, which has nothing to do with the movie. It's Japanese themed, and honestly, I don't even know why they chose the name The Mimic. It doesn't fit the game. But we were playing it with a third party, and we got in there, and as soon as we started, this kid would just stay in a safe place. And I said, "You've got to help us." And he said, "I'm scared." I said, "It's a game. It's not real life." "Well, can I go with you?" And I was like, and I'd already left the room. And he's like, "You don't have to ask me if you're going to follow me around. You just follow me around." But kids are like that. They're helpless and they're full of fears because because the adults have filled them with fear. The world has filled them with fear. I mean, it's horrible what we do to our kids. And it's we all think it's like funny and stuff like that, but the consequences can be long lasting. But anyways, so eventually he started following me around, but he was absolutely useless in the game. I mean, he barely ever tried to do anything to get us through any section of the game, and because he was always too scared. And I've seen this a lot in horror movie games in Roblox, is kids who haven't learned to control their fears are petrified and absolutely useless, and it's very frustrating because in some games you actually need a big team and everybody needs to be involved, and one or two things will happen. Either somebody will get left behind because they're too scared to do what they need to do to get out, or nobody will be able to leave to go to the next level because that person is holding everybody back because of their inaction or because of their fear. So it's really, really important that you do something to kind of anesthetize yourself to scary dreams. Now, the best thing that I can suggest, and don't do this before bedtime, guys, okay? But find a lot of stupid horror movies. I mean, all the B movies, the old Hammer films with Vincent Price, Christopher, whatever his name is, Christopher Lee, Bela Lugosi, and all these other old-time actors and actresses, and they did The Mummy and The Werewolf and Dracula and Frankenstein's monster and all these other things, and giant monster movies, or kaijin as they're called nowadays. Find all of those movies that were made in such a way that they're not really very scary, and watch them. Don't watch them at night before bedtime. Watch them during the day when you feel safest. Whatever part of the day you feel safest. What I did, I started doing this as a kid, and I didn't realize I was actually doing therapy for myself. But I was very fortunate because they used to have what was called variously shock theater. There was one of the hosts was Toulouse Nonek, and then later there was Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and I think there was somebody else. But they would show you all these schlock horror movies, these B movies, and so I'd be watching in the middle of the day, and I had light coming in the windows, and so I didn't feel fear because, clearly it's daytime. In the movie, it's nighttime, and as a result, I kind of inoculated myself against these B movies. And then I stepped up into the A game, which was a big step, I must admit. And I recommend not watching it late at night. I remember being at my uncle's house many years ago, and he had cable TV, and I decided I'm going to watch Alien with Sigourney Weaver, the first one. I had to quit. I was so freaked out. I was still, I was a kid. I was like in, I don't know, junior high maybe. And I was just so freaked out by the film because it was so well done, so scary. I just had to stop. And I think it took me like 2 or 3 tries to get through the whole movie before and it's a really good movie, but it was so scary for me at that time. And part of the problem was I was watching it late at night at his house. So find a safe time of day to watch movies. Have some light coming in from outside. Not enough that you can't see the screen well, but enough that you feel secure as you're watching these horror movies. Again, I can't stress this enough. Don't watch it late at night. Okay? Please don't watch it late at night because you're not going to sleep. You're going to have nightmares. And try to avoid for a while the scariest movies. Like, I remember one of the last movies that gave me a nightmare was John Carpenter's The Thing from the 1980s. I watched that midday, but it was so scary that night. I had a nightmare. Do you remember the scene where the dog sprouts tentacles and out of its back and stuff, and they're flailing around? I had that happen to me, but I was the dog, and it was so freaky. I woke up and I could feel the tentacles. I was like, ah! And but I calmed down and went back to bed, and it was okay. But that was one of the last horror movies that actually gave me a nightmare. And again, I was a teenager at the time, and the younger you are, the more susceptible you are to reacting very strongly to horror movies. If you're a little kid, please don't watch horror movies, except for the really silly ones. Okay, like R.L. Stein or stuff that's pretty innocuous, pretty safe. You got to work yourself all the way up to the hardcore stuff. And honestly, I find slasher movies like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff like that, I either from the start or eventually, I find them boring. Because, yeah, sure, the ways you see people die gets, it's always different, but it's always the same thing. Killer kills a bunch of people. Somebody fights back and gets rid of the killer. In the next movie, the killer comes back and does it again. And one of the victims survives, and the next, it's just like over and over and over again. And, I like it when something surprises me, when it's not what I thought it was going to be. Like when I first watched The Nightmare on Elm Street, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, because it was a different take on that. And then when I first watched Scream, I was like, oh, that's really cool. I really like that movie. But 2, 3, 4, 15, and I'm like, seriously, guys, Halloween did not need that many movies. Friday the 13th did not need a TV show that was as schlocky as that. But, that's actually a good suggestion. Watch Friday the 13th, the TV show, for a schlock example. Or if you want to go a little bit more hardcore, you could watch Supernatural, but it's a bit hammy. Or The Vampire Diaries. There are a lot of hammy B TV shows out there that are horror. And people love them. I mean, Supernatural has been around for how long now? I gave up on Supernatural years ago. I stay away from The Walking Dead. It tends to be too much of a psychological horror, so that's like one you're going to want to save for later. And if you are having mental health issues, especially like depression and paranoia, schizophrenia, or some other kinds of psychoses or certain neuroses, stay away from The Walking Dead, because it is a head trip and it can really mess you up. I mean, I remember my wife and I binge watched the first 2 seasons all at once. We rented some DVDs, and it just messed me up. I was depressed because they were really portraying the dark side of humanity in times of crisis, and it really rang true. But now I am digressing. So start with something safe and easy. Depending on your age, you have to determine what's going to be safe for you, and slowly work your way up. Whatever it is that you're most afraid of, that's what you get to last. Okay? Because by watching it over and over and over again, this kind of stuff, eventually, if you are using your brain, instead of just watching and reacting, if you're using your brain, you should, to help you, you should criticize the movie. Find all the flaws that you can recognize in the movie. Or for example, if the creator of the movie, like Twilight Saga, they made not completely different, but very, very different vampires from what we'd ever seen previously. Previously, they tended to follow a specific set of do's and don'ts, and then when it got to the Twilight Saga, it was like, glittering vampires in the sunlight, so they can go in the sunlight, and there's this other stuff. I was like, what? But just whatever it is that bothers you the most, save that for the last. And by the time you have gone through enough of these things, and if you do it right, and if you're using your brain to override your emotional reaction, because there's a part of your brain, a primitive part of your brain called the amygdala, that's going to want to trigger every time you see a horror movie. If you are working to stop it from triggering every time you watch a horror movie, eventually it's going to get to the point where you're going to have a harder time finding a horror movie that's worth watching. But on the flip side, you're going to have a lot easier time dealing with nightmares. Like, I think it's been years since I saw a really, really great horror film. I remember I saw the first Saw movie, and I was like, oh, that is so creative. I really appreciate it. And then Saw 2 and Saw 3 and Saw, oh my God, please let the guy die. But, a lot of people, they just want to see the same stuff over and over again, and then it just gets tedious. Yeah. Boy, we have been going on for quite some time now, and I think there are probably some other techniques, but I think I've given you enough. You can always do your own research if none of the things that I have mentioned so far work for you. But the coup de grace for me, the thing that has made the most difference, and I've actually hinted at it here and there in this video, and it was actually what I was just talking about just now, is having control here. Okay? And this potentially is going to take some practice. It may take a lot of practice. It may take a little bit of practice, depending on where you are in the journey of learning to control your own mind. Because one of the things that, at least in my life, I was not taught this. I had to find this out for myself. They didn't have mindfulness in school when I was a kid or a teenager or even an adult. This was not a thing at all. And I had to read about it. I had to learn about it. And I know that there are still schools all over the world that do not teach mindfulness. But mindfulness is an amazing tool. So I want you to learn how to control your brain, because that is the best way to help you to fall asleep quickly. And again, I don't recommend meditation for sleep or mindfulness for sleep, although this is actually a form of mindfulness, or more precisely, it's being present in the moment without extraneous thoughts affecting you. Okay? So the goal, I guess you could say, is like a no-focus meditation. The goal is to get your brain to stop thinking. No words and no pictures. Now you're saying, but Glenn, I don't think in pictures. Yes, you do. You just don't know it. Before you had words, you had pictures. Before you learned to speak, before you could understand your family talking to you, you had pictures in your head. That's what everybody starts with, except for people who are born blind. And then they've got something else, I'm sure. Maybe it's just sounds. But you need to learn to calm all of that. Okay, so some of the techniques that I've shared with you today, and you're like looking today, it's dark out there, right? And it's dark. No, this is actually early morning. I get up at 4 in the morning. If you can learn to control your mind to the point where you are not having thoughts in your head, you will. And you're doing the other stuff, like the other things that are very important, like not eating close to bedtime, not drinking close to bedtime, staying away from caffeine 8 hours before bedtime, and that sort of stuff. I mean, some of these things you have to put them all together, okay? One of them is not just going to work. But you have to learn to turn off all your thinking, okay? I used to lie in bed, and one of my problems was either I was obsessing, which I had a mental tornado in my head. Something had upset me, and I was just thinking about it. I was just going around and 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 around in my head about it over and over again. No resolution, no conclusion. It would last for hours. I mean, literally, there were times where this would be keeping me awake for hours. And this obsessive thinking is what stops you from falling asleep. Or you may be very excited about something. Oh, tomorrow I'm going to, and you keep on thinking about it. As long as you're thinking about it, you're not going to fall asleep. Or you've got some kind of a thing that you're trying to figure out the solution to, or whatever it is. If you notice that you're thinking about stuff, and it doesn't even have to be just one thing. It could be a whole bunch of other stuff. That is keeping you awake. So your thought processes, I mean, we're not taught to be focused in school very much, except for now with mindfulness. We're not taught that it's okay when you have times where you're not thinking, where you're just kind of vegetating. We're not really taught that is okay to do. I have a very active brain. I think a lot. I introspect a lot. I try to understand things a lot. So I've got a lot going on up there. And I used to have a lot of obsessive thinking as well, a lot of negative thinking, a lot of woe is me thinking, why did they do this to me thinking and stuff. And I'm a lot better. I'm not 100%, but I'm a lot better than I used to be. But I found that it is absolutely critical to get that stuff to shut up. So I would lie in bed and I would focus on what I was thinking about. And one by one, everything that popped up into my head, I'd shut it down. I'd say, that can wait till tomorrow. That can wait till tomorrow. Shut up, Glenn. Shh. Stop. Don't think. Be quiet. Shh. Shut up. Literally, I was talking to myself in bed. I know it sounds hilarious or ridiculous, but it worked. My brain would hear me telling me to shut up, and it would shut up. Now, granted, sometimes it took a few shut-ups before it would shut up. Now, it's important that if you're telling your brain to shut up, you don't start getting emotional about it. Okay, this is just a firm, calm shut up. It is not shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up! Because then you're not going to go to sleep because you're working yourself up. You have to keep your emotions as calm as possible, and you just have to be firm and calm and say, shut up. Shut up. Stop thinking. And do it in a bored way, but a serious way, so your brain understands, okay, time to stop. And look, some of you it's going to be easy. Some of you are going to be like me, and it's going to take a lot of practice. And some people it's going to take a lot of practice. And some people it's just not going to work for. Everybody's different. But you got to get control of what's going on up here. If you don't have control of what's going on up here, you don't have control of your life. Okay? You are not in control. Especially for those of you who feel you have to control everything around you. You are out of control in your life, and so you compensate by controlling everything else that you can. And that creates problems for you and everybody around you. Okay, so when you lie down in bed, close your eyes. Examine what's going on in your head. Stop each thought as it pops in. Stop it. Just stop it. Just let it go. Stop it. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Until there's nothing going on in your head. Now, remember I told you that there are going to be pictures when the words stop? This will happen to you, okay? Once the words stop coming, pictures will start coming. That's okay. Here's the secret. When the pictures start coming, you can see them, but don't watch them. Do you understand the difference? To see is like, oh, right now I see that I'm in a room, but I'm not really focusing on it. Watching is focusing. So you don't really have, at this stage, you don't have the ability to just automatically shut off those pictures very easily until you learn how to do that. And that is a part of the process, right? But you do have the ability to not focus on them. So when I say not focus, there are two aspects to that. You may see interesting pictures and you want to see more of what goes on with that. Don't try to direct or control in any other way the pictures you see. Whatever comes, let it come. When it goes, let it go. Don't fight it. Don't control it. Leave it be. All right? And the second thing is don't turn it into a movie. Okay? That's directing, right? You're directing a movie. And that's not what you want because it's not going to help you sleep. Just let it come and go, and it doesn't matter what the images are. If they are calm images, or they're exciting images, or they're beautiful images, or they're scary images, do not react to them in any way. Because what you react to, your brain will keep on feeding you, and then you won't go to sleep. So you just have to let them come and go, come and go, come and go, come and go. And then eventually you'll realize, oh, it's morning. I fell asleep. Wow, that was wonderful. Now, again, this is probably for most people not going to happen right away. You're probably going to need to practice again and again. But the more you practice, for the majority of people, the easier it will get. And eventually you'll be to the point where, like me, you can fall asleep in many different situations very, very rapidly. Now, I've never tested myself by going to a war zone or something like that, so I don't know whether I'd be able to sleep with machine guns going off around me and bombs and stuff like that. But I know that in a normal circumstance, even a somewhat noisy circumstance like at a workplace, I can put my head down and I can take a 15-minute nap to refresh myself. Now, there's something that I need to end this video with, and it's really important. You need to set a consistent sleep schedule so that every night you're going to bed at the same time. Every day you're getting up at the same time. Now, if you can't always get up because like you had an exhausting day and you just fell asleep and you needed extra sleep, that's not as bad as different sleep times every night. Different sleep times will result in you never waking up feeling rested. It'll take you longer to get out of bed. It'll take you longer to feel awake. You'll probably start drinking coffee to try and compensate, which is bad. Okay? Do not rely on coffee and tea and other sources of caffeine on any kind of a regular basis to get you going in the morning, because it becomes addictive. And then you become reliant upon it, and you have trouble functioning when you don't have access to caffeine. If you don't believe me, ask my sister. She actually had to wean herself off of caffeine because she got so reliant on it. But a consistent schedule every single day. Okay. Now, I made the mistake with my kids that on weekends I would let them stay up a bit later. And that has created a problem because now they feel like, oh, it's a privilege and I can stay up later. And so they never, I'm having trouble getting them to understand every night go to bed at the same time. But if you can do that, that will make a big difference. And the other thing is if during the day you feel like you need to take a nap, okay, take a nap. But, this is very important. Do not take a nap longer than 30 minutes. Okay? Now, and the reason is this, is that most people, if they sleep for more than about 30 minutes, some people a little bit more, some people a little bit less, you will wake up feeling disoriented and sleepy and confused, and it will take a long time to come out of that. And the reason is because you've gone from a light sleeping mode to a deep sleep. And when you pull yourself out of deep sleep, those are the consequences. And it's going to make you want to go back to sleep. Okay? So try half an hour. If you find that you wake up from half an hour and you're like, I'm a zombie, what's that? Then 30 minutes is too long for you. Try 25 minutes. Try 20 minutes. Now, I usually, for me, 30 minutes works, 15 minutes works. Sometimes I'll take 2 15-minute naps if I need to. You can try to trick yourself by taking a 30-minute nap, getting up, doing something, and then taking another 30-minute nap. The point is that I wouldn't push it any longer than that, though. Because if you get too much of a nap during the day, when it's time for bed, guess what? You're going to have trouble sleeping. So those long naps during the day are not good. Alternatively, if you want to help yourself feel more rested or rejuvenated, you can try listening to recordings that you have listened to with full awareness and know are safe to hear, that help you to relax and also to re-energize. So that by the time you're done watching it, or listening to it, you are like, I'm ready to go. Alternatively, I guess, you could do meditation. Meditation tends to give us some relief from sleepiness, but you have to experiment to see what works best for you. So those are a lot of the things that I know about to help you with sleep. Stay away from medication unless it's absolutely necessary. Try natural solutions first. And when I say natural solutions, I don't mean homeopathy, which is a fraudulent science, or pseudoscience, whatever you want to call it. And be very careful what you're trying. These are the things that I've tried are all safe. Okay, the things I'm telling you about are medically and psychologically safe, but there are, as long as you listen to the caveats that I stated, but there are other natural solutions out there that are BS, that are they're just trying to get your money. So be careful, and sweet dreams.